Let's watch a video that illustrates important person-centered practices and concepts. In this video, we will watch how Medicaid LTSS screeners conduct a screening in someone's home. When you are watching the video, look for the following things. Are there any person-centered approaches that the screeners could use in this scenario? If so, what are they? Do Mariah and Daniela seem sincere? What do they do to make you think this? How would you interpret what Joe is communicating, both through verbal and nonverbal communication? How would you respond to Joe? Does Joe seem comfortable or uncomfortable? Before we begin, let's meet the screeners and the person being screened. Meet Mariah. Mariah is a Medicaid LTSS screener from the local Department of Health. Next, we'd like for you to meet Daniela. Daniela is a Medicaid LTSS screener from the local Department of Social Services. Next, let's meet Joe. Joe is being screened for Medicaid long-term services and supports. Joe has been diagnosed with end-stage renal disease and vascular dementia. He uses a walker to get around. Lastly, this is Jamie. Jamie is Joe's daughter. Mariah and Daniela arrive at Joe's house and introduce themselves. Joe welcomes them into his home. Mariah notices that Joe is moving slowly and having a difficult time turning around his walker. They decide to meet at a set of chairs in the living room. Joe seems impatient, asking how long it will take because he has a doctor's appointment for which he cannot be late. Daniela and Mariah explain that the screening will only take a few hours and that they will watch the clock to make sure that he isn't late. Daniela asks what time Joe needs to be at his appointment so he can make sure that he gets there on time. Daniela then sets her alarm on her phone for 20 minutes before Joe needs to leave for his appointment. Joe seems to be put at ease by this. They begin to set up their workspace: computer, notepad, pen, business cards, hotspot, and hand sanitizer. Both Daniela and Mariah give Joe their business cards and reintroduce themselves to Joe and explain the purpose for their meeting. They encourage Joe to reach out to either of them if he has any questions after the screening. They explain that they will be conducting an interview with Joe. They share that the interview is a screening for the need and eligibility for Medicaid long-term services and supports. Daniela lets Joe know that although there will not be a determination today, the information that is collected will help them make a decision. Mariah explains to Joe that he will receive a letter in the mail that details the decision and his right to appeal if he disagrees. If he is found eligible, the letter will contain information about how services could be covered, such as by Medicaid or by a local agency. Before they get started, Mariah and Daniela ask Joe if he has any questions. Joe does not seem to have any questions, so they begin the screening. Mariah gives a quick review of the information they already have about Joe. Daniela asks Joe a series of questions and tells him to just answer the best he can. Mariah states that she is going to do the best she can to look at Joe when speaking and apologizes for having to look periodically down at her computer. She shares that she wants to make sure that they get everything they need and make sure that Joe gets to his appointment on time. Daniela then asks for any medical information that Joe may have, such as prescribed medications, upcoming appointments, and recent medical history. Joe seems a bit overwhelmed. He stares blankly at Daniela for a few seconds, then shakes his head into clarity, stands up, and lifts a seat lid from his walker where he has stored some papers. He hands them the schedule of upcoming appointments, reasons for each visit, and a list of his medications. Mariah thanks Joe and takes the papers and continues typing. Daniela notes that it seems like Joe appreciates having a schedule and asks if there is any other things that Joe needs help with. Joe states that he doesn't like to talk about it, but his memory isn't what it used to be. He shares that Miss Ann at the front desk at his apartment building calls him a few times each week to check on him. Daniela acknowledges that this sounds like Miss Ann is very helpful and asks for Joe to tell him his current address, including the state, county, town, street number, and street name. Joe pauses before he answers and then states his apartment number, city, and state. Mariah asks Joe for the town and street name. Joe states the city, but shared that he's not sure what the street is, but that it's called ABC Apartments. He shares that he really likes it at the apartments, and he has been there for 5 years. He says that he has some mail around that has the address on it, if that would help. Daniela shares that it's okay, and he doesn't need to find it, and asks Joe to share what today's date is, including the year, season, day of the week, date, and month. Joe states that it's been pretty cold lately, and it's February, so winter, and states that today is Thursday. He says that he doesn't have much need to know any more than that. He says that he has a calendar around, but he thinks that it's last year's and that he hasn't been able to get to the store to get a new one, and that it's been so cold, and with the snow and ice, it's been hard for him to get around much. Mariah asks about the other people in Joe's life aside from Miss Ann. Joe shares that he has 6 children, but they are all adults now. A few of them have given him grandbabies. Daniela asks how often he sees his family, and Joe responds that he doesn't see them as often as he would like, but that his youngest daughter visits him every once in a while. He shares that his youngest daughter makes sure he's doing all right and asks him a lot of questions like Daniela and Mariah are asking. Daniela asks for Joe's youngest daughter's name, and Joe shares that it is Jamie and that she will be coming to the apartment soon to take him to his doctor's appointment. Mariah shares that it would be wonderful to meet her, and Daniela agrees. Daniela asks about any benefits that Joe receives, like Social Security income, Medicare, Medicaid, or SNAP benefits. Joe responds that he does, and then Jamie enters the room. Mariah and Daniela introduce themselves to Jamie and ask Joe if it's okay if they continue the interview with Jamie present. Joe shares that it's okay with him, and Jamie pulls up a chair to join the conversation. Joe shares with Mariah that Jamie comes often to check on him and that he appreciates it because he gets very lonely. Mariah asks Joe if he has a pill box, and Joe says that Jamie takes care of giving all of his medications. Mariah asks if Jamie helps him with anything else like getting dressed, eating, using the restroom, taking a bath, or a shower. Joe looks uncomfortable and shares that he doesn't need any help with those things. Jamie jumps into the conversation and tells him not to be so prideful, hands him his afternoon medication, and shares a story about how Joe fell and fractured his hip, and that the only reason anyone knew was because Jamie popped by because he wasn't responding to his phone. Jamie shares that she isn't trying to embarrass Joe, but that she wants to be sure that he gets the help that he needs. Mariah interjects and validates both of them, stating that it appears that they share some concerns about Joe's ability to do the things that he was once able to do. This seems to calm Joe down, and Daniela proceeds to ask him about whether he takes a bath or a shower and if he needs any help doing that. Let's review. After meeting Mariah, Daniela, Joe, and Jamie, what did you notice? Were you attuned to the body language? Did you notice how Joe began the meeting anxiously as he was worried about making it to his appointment on time? And how Daniela and Mariah were attentive and respectful of his concern? Joe was calmed by Daniela when she clearly addressed Joe's concern about the time. As the screening continues, Mariah and Daniela guide their questions in a natural flow with the conversation. This helps Joe feel that he is being listened to and avoids rote interviewing that can feel impersonal. During this free-flowing interview, Mariah and Daniela are observing and noting what they need to complete the screening. For instance, forgetfulness is identified at the beginning of the interview when Joe shares his appointment reminders. That is why Daniela began with questions about orientation. Similarly, Mariah addresses the types of supports Joe has in his life because he mentioned Miss Ann, his daughter, and his doctors. Learning of the supports is a creative way to initiate conversation regarding assistance with daily activities with dignity. Towards the end of the scenario, Daniela acknowledges that Joe is upset, embarrassed, and distancing himself. Joe's discomfort is clear in his response to questions regarding his daily routine through his body language, and as he crossed his arms and looked away from Mariah and Daniela. Think about your own experience with screening or interviewing. What tools or skills would you use to approach the process in a person-centered way? What tools or skills could Mariah and Daniela have used? How receptive was Joe to Mariah and Daniela? How receptive were Daniela and Mariah to Joe? When conducting the interview, it should feel like a natural conversation. Screeners should make sure that they gather the information that is needed while allowing for a natural conversation. Conducting the screening interview in this way ensures that person-centered practices are employed and the individual is treated with respect. Thank you for watching this video. Please complete the rest of the content for this section of the training to take the competency test.
This module was developed under Grant CFDA 93.791 from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. However, these contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government.